Cross. So we'll be showing you a little clip from her lovely shop later on. But first, and I'm very excited as a fan of comedy myself, to have a local comedy legend, Mr. John Colleary, on the show with us here, and he's already messing. Welcome, John. How are you doing?
Fine.
This is kind of odd. I'm just interviewing you like a chat show now, whereas we normally just have a coffee.
Yeah. The fact that we're in the bowels of a hotel as well.
It's a bit surreal. No, we're not supposed to reveal that. Okay. This is a high-spec studio.
It's a high-spec studio.
The
fact that we're in a high-spec studio makes me think back to the old days when we used to be in studio. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. It seems like a long time ago. So obviously, John, I know you a few years, but I suppose I don't even know an awful lot about the background and the growing up, and I'm sure some of our audience have seen you in many shows, but maybe don't know the background. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Ballysadare.
Ballysadare is brilliant.
Okay.
I love it.
You were the tourist board out there?
Yeah. So I grew up there. It's a town in the west of Ireland. What more can you say?
Okay, just generic town.
Generic town, and it's actually quite busy nowadays. It's very, very traffic heavy. It's like lots and lots of trucks going up and down, building new roads, going to faraway places. But I grew up there, and I was lucky enough to play sport when I was younger, so that was something to do. Otherwise, it was a little bit, in terms of stuff to get on with, a little bit dry that way. But sport was good, and we had a youth club when we were kids, and got to meet other youth clubs and stuff. So it was a bit of action, bit of, fun.
Action is in drama or theatre, or action is in
just
chasing?
Yeah, just
chasing girls.
Getting into trouble, I suppose.
Getting into trouble.
Little bits of trouble. And I left, but I kind of left there when I was about 18. And then again, I came back. I was in Galway for about a year. And then when I came back, I stayed maybe till I was 19 over 19 anyway, and then I went to London.
Off to London.
So I was in London then I was back in Sligo, then I was back in London, and then I was back in Sligo, then I was in Dublin for 25 years. So
I didn't know you were in Dublin that long.
That was
right.
that long, yeah.
And London, was that, was it this world of comedy, or was it just random back
it was
over?
comedy, but there was no money for it.
Yeah.
Because we were working on, everyone was a comedian, but...
Yes.
So I was working on building sites mostly.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah. 19, 20, that age group sort of thing.
Yeah. And you mentioned sports there. What sports would you love when you were young?
For Ballysadare United when I was a kid.
Okay, so that was your love.
From about 12 up into my mid-20s, maybe at 25, 26, I kind of stopped playing then. And I was in Dublin the year after, so I didn't play for any clubs in Dublin.
You would only keep it the homegrown team.
I kind of did keep it to the home team, so I didn't really kind of branch out. Plus I was too busy drinking pints for playing football. 25 is a dangerous age. You kind of discover, God, this pint crack is actually, for some, can be good. Football's getting in the way.
It's getting in the way.
People waking you up on Sunday mornings to go and play football.
Yeah, Sundays, there should be no sport on Sundays, really. No. Anyways, go back to, as you said, school, college, or travel. Were you always the joker at home or in school? Or?
Yeah, I guess so, I guess at home, definitely. In school, not so much in primary school, definitely secondary school, especially when you go into secondary school and I was quite young going to secondary school. I was about 11 still. I hadn't been turned 12 till I was a month into the year. So it was a way of getting around things when you could be a smart arse.
I've heard a lot of people say this, when people are bigger to avoid trouble sometimes.
Yeah, so there was a bit of that, definitely.
Did you get popular because of being funny, or was it was it that you caused yourself trouble with teachers as well?
Well, there was a bit of that too. There was kind of, you kind of got left alone if you kind of made people laugh, whereas you could get picked on a bit if you were just quiet. Whereas if you were kind of chirpy or something, then you could impersonate people or something, or you could do that. I could do that with a few teachers and stuff, and once you get a laugh, you're safe. You're kind of safe.
A good friend of mine who's an entertainer said the exact same thing. It just got him through and avoided sometimes bullying. It's funny, like people.
Well, there was bullying in the school in the first year, I remember, and then the comedy took over.
And that
the bullying abated slightly.
It's gas, isn't it? Just shows you how it can work. And did you do anything in those youth clubs? Were you a performer at a young age? Some people don't really
no,
get
I was
into
quite shy. Actually, I wouldn't be able to do it when I was younger. I was. So maybe, a few drinks in then, later on, late teens especially, you get a bit performery then, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone gets perform, even if they're not good at it.
Yeah, especially if they're not good at it.
You
start hopping around the place and shouting and roaring. And, trying to be funny and sometimes succeeding.
And so when you weren't drinking and you started performing in a proper manner, like what age did that start to kind of develop?
I was late enough with that as well compared to the way a lot of people start. So I was over 30 anyway. I did something in Sligo here with a couple of friends of mine, Rob, Killian and Dylan Foley. Back in the late 90s, we had a band which we did sketches in between the songs as well.
Right.
We did that for a summer, I think, in 1999.
It's a bit like Billy Connolly, wasn't it? That's what he started, wasn't he? He
Yeah.
was a singer, but he started doing more.
We set it up to be comedy, and the songs were just sort of incidental to the
fillers
to the sketches, and the songs were kind of funny songs anyway.
Okay.
So we did a bit of that, and the band we were in kind of got bigger and bigger. We ended up with people playing bongos and didgeridoos and stuff, and
Anything just to add to the crowd.
It was quite good fun, and we just did it for a summer, and then I didn't do anything for about maybe 3 years after that. About 2003, I started kind of taking it seriously.
Okay.
And I started trying to do it.
Okay, you felt I can actually...
Well, I felt I didn't know whether I could.
Yeah.
But I felt I needed to give it a go.
It must be difficult in comedy to go, I'm funny. It must be, as everyone said, it is the hardest kind of performance thing to go up on the stage and go, I'm funny. You know, whereas someone acting can act a character, but you're going, no, well, I mean, you might think you're funny necessarily, but you have to go up and go.
Saying you're funny to yourself kind of never helps either.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, I'm afraid works.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I better do something to make these people laugh. I'm afraid.
Gives you that adrenaline rush. Forces you to perform better. And like, would you describe yourself, I suppose you've done stand-up, but you've been in so many different things. Mm-hmm. Would you describe yourself more as a writer or a comedian or an actor, or do you even think about that kind of definition?
Well, I kind of got to think about that a bit more in this pandemic thing, because before I would have been performing all the time. I would have been like working 3 nights a week, maybe some corporate-y stuff during the day, depending on what time of year it was. Maybe some stuff on set, maybe a sketch for somebody, maybe something on radio.
Yeah.
So in terms of creating content for that, there's a bit of writing. But to me, the performance thing is the first thing.
Okay, that's your preference.
So it's not the preference, just the way I write is by performing.
Okay.
So I found this period kind of difficult to actually motivate to get stuff
Okay, because you weren't going to be able to perform.
Because I couldn't put it anywhere.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And so would you prefer to sit in a room writing, or no, as you said, definitely, but would you rather write something or perform something you've written, or do you love someone, give me a script, great, no pressure about writing, just go in and perform?
No, I'd like to do something I'd written.
Okay.
Or I'd written collaborated on with somebody else, because that's my favourite part of when you say, when you ask me, am I a writer or a comic, I would say a comic first, and I'm a good collaborator.
Okay.
So if there's all the stuff we worked on, Savage Eye, Irish Pictorial, not the Hardy books because the guys had written that, I just played a part there.
Yeah.
But the other stuff and the stuff I did with Today FM, that was kind of collaborative. Okay. So it's all brainstorming and picking up stuff off other people and using bits that everyone brings, and there's no real ego about it, and you just put a thing together and it works the way it works.
So the likes of Today FM, like, is that like some of the skits we see, or is it like to help a presenter to do a piece, or what?
What do you mean?
Were you writing a set sketch within a show all the time? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I wrote for Matt Cooper's program.
Right.
For about 4 years.
Okay.
I did 2 years with Bernard from Bridget and Eamon.
Bernard O'Shea, yeah.
So Bernard brought me into that first in 2006. We did 2 years of writing 2 sketches a week for Matt's program Satire.
Oh, okay.
We had 2 characters, they were cops. We wrote stuff around them. It was straight man, funny man. I was the straight man. It was kind of like,
I didn't realise
a bit like Garda Ted. So it was like Ted and Dougal, only they're cops.
Yeah.
A bit like that. And so we did that for 2 years, and that was a collaboration. And then 2 years after we finished that, because Bernard had moved on to radio, he was in iRadio, and I think he was in 2FM as well.
He was
after that.
Yeah.
So they asked me back to try and do 1 sketch a week for them, just myself. So I did that.
Okay. Did you find that more difficult than on your own?
I found it difficult in the beginning, but then I got a way of writing it, and I got a way of just sussing out what to write about, and sussing out, just keeping an eye on news and stuff. So I could spend 5 days going, what am I going to write for Cooper's program, and then something would happen on day 6 in the news, and it's like
there.
instant, like
because
it could be that quick.
That was one of the things that was written here. Was I was saying like do you find the writing process long or drawn out? I always visualize you as being more of an ad lib. Give me something I could write a sketch in 5 minutes now with that little.
Sometimes, but the best stuff, the stuff we did with the stuff that Dave did, and I was working with Dave and Patrick and Dermot and everyone else on the Savage Eye. That stuff was kind of percolated over a long time.
Yeah,
especially as each series went on with the Savage Eye, it went longer and longer. So the first series was about 9 months, 6 to 9 months of writing and getting the stuff ready and then shooting it and whatever. Then it went to sort of 10 months. The last one we did the last Savage Eye we did lasted, I'd say about 14 months.
Really? And that was a team in a room? Like, what are we talking? How many hours a week? Or it was like going to an office job?
Yeah. You're talking meetings, script meetings twice a week, 3 times a week, and then writing the stuff in between.
Right.
So we spent ages at that.
You did show, like I did a comedy course with you there last year. And by the way, I thought you were, go back to the ad lib thing. Every time one of us in the class was doing something, you were always able to add something immediately afterwards. So you obviously have that great ad lib, quick thinking process. But in those shows, I imagine writing with David, like we all know David is this quirky guy.
Yeah.
But was it fun writing with him? Would he have a character and stick to it, or would he be very, no, we'll listen to you, or was it a bit of each?
He's very much a unique type of person and performer, so he would always stick to his guns. Sometimes he would stick to his guns because you were sticking to your guns.
Just for different.
He wouldn't agree with you just because you were saying something. Yeah. Even if he liked it.
Yeah, no, because I have met him, and like you can see that in him. Like, just for different now.
I'm not going to agree with you. Oppositional.
But a comedy genius as well. Like.
Yeah, very much.
Do you think the Savage Eye would ever be allowed to happen again now?
Oh, I think so.
Do you think that would RTE take it back, or would it have to be more of an?
I don't know who'd. I don't know where to get commissioned, but I think there's a space for it there, especially now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a space for it.
This crack.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So a few little comments coming in. We've Tommy Stenson down here in Mayo. John, I believe you know him.
Yeah, I know Tommy.
He's watching. He's enjoying it all the way from Mayo. Jamie Graham has watched. You went to college in DCU, you said, was it?
Yeah.
There you go now. So he's following you around. Keep an eye on what you're at. Mickey Murray there, very quiet young man out in Strand Hill. He's saying he misses all those shows. I think we all do. That's what I'm saying. It would be lovely. Well, I'm sure you imagine. I'm sure you might miss the creativity and the fun as well as it's obviously work as well, like
Yeah.
But I think there's a huge space for panel shows or more sketch shows in Ireland, because I think Ireland's full of giddiness and stories like and development and characters. Like, so it'd be great to see them.
And absolute catastrophic governments, which makes for good satire.
Of course it is.
Like, makes it, like, you have to.
It keeps people in a business.
You have to, because those guys. And I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Not at all.
But those guys haven't been checked. I mean, they haven't been checked by media. I mean, all through the history of satire and comedy and maybe in Ireland a bit more lately, you've had a chance to have a pop.
Yeah.
You've had a chance to have a pop at governments, Taoiseach, whoever the main people are in the news. It's not happening now. And I think that's missing.
There's no way to vent it out, really.
Well, there's no way to kind of balance out the.
I think people aren't afraid now. I mean, on social media to equally question things now. So I think a comedy sketch will go, oh, great. Like we did a thing there for fun on Roadworks. Obviously we haven't talked about it, but like it was like an opening a door for everyone to go, oh yeah, God, this is really, really. But like it was a bit of fun as well. Like I suppose when you think back to the old days of politicians, it's probably untouchable to do. Charlie High and those guys until Dermot Morgan, probably, was it?
Well, there was stuff before that. Like I mean, the show we did with Barry, the Irish Pictorial, was a kind of an homage to the original Pictorial Weekly.
Ah,
which was a 70s
sorry, right,
program
okay.
with Frank Hall, who went in to satire about the currency of the politics of that day.
Right. So I actually didn't even know that.
Yeah. That thing was a kind of a.
And that was brilliant. And Eleanor Tiernan's on it. And people thought some of her news reports were real.
Oh yeah, God. Yeah.
If you haven't seen them, definitely check out Eleanor Tiernan's. They were very funny. Like, so going back to, we spoke about your writing, but come back to as regards comedy. When would you say, okay, I really started getting gigs all the time? You know what I mean? When did that really become professional for you?
Well, again, some luck there as well, because I started doing stand-up proper, and I'd say early 2003 was when I kind of officially in my mind was the first foray into that. And then I was quite lucky at the time because right then there wasn't that much happening, but there was a lot about to happen.
Okay.
So like there was a couple of clubs, the international, the lounge was closed then. It had been closed for a few years, so there was no laughter lounge. There was the international, there was the Halfpenny, there was a few others dotted around. There was one or two. There was a Galway thing, the Cuba.
Yeah.
Which was the GPO first, then it became Cuba, and what else? Well, as Limerick had, the Dolans,
Dolans,
and Cork had City Limits, and apart from that, everything else was kind of random.
Yeah.
But in 2003, there wasn't that many people doing it. There was still kind of a core group of people doing stand up. There wasn't that many new people coming up.
Okay.
So the group I came up with, like there was 3 or 4 of them that are still working, or maybe a bit more than maybe 6 people who I could name who are still working. But then Des Bishop's thing kind of took off, the work experience show, and then the International went from a 1 night a week comedy club over a period of 6 months, maybe a year, became a 4 night a week comedy club. Like, so that sort of expanded that whole thing.
So really, it was the TV you think really opened the window to go, stand-up comedy is great, like.
Yeah, and people started kind of getting, and that you're coming into what, 2003, 2004, you're dead centre of Celtic Tiger.
Yes.
Where people had money, people had disposable income, they wanted to go out.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, there's comedy clubs popping up here and there, comedy becomes a thing. And I had gotten in a couple of years ahead of that.
You were just on the wave, just before it took off.
Just luckily.
Yeah.
And because in the years after 2005, 6, possibly when that recession kicked in, that time, bank bailout and all that, there was a lot of people doing comedy and a lot of people coming up and a lot of people that couldn't even get a spot in the Inter or couldn't get a spot in the lounge because there was so many people clamouring for
I can imagine
stage time. And it didn't happen when I started 5 years previously.
Right.
So kind of lucky that way.
Yeah.
So I had gotten in, just a wee bit ahead of that. So that was lucky. So I started getting, I suppose, getting mobile as well. I got a car then about 2005. Hadn't been driving before that. And once you get a car, you're kind of mobile and you're getting more.
So you were doing that circuit you mentioned.
Yeah, and it just kicked off. And Art
Cork,
Centre kicked
Limerick.
off. The Art Centre here kicked off, and the model that kicked off in 2003. 2005, one in Carrick-on-Shannon kicked off. Then maybe a year later, you had Roscommon Art Centre, and that became a circuit, 3 nights. Wednesday night in Roscommon. Imagine that. Wednesday night in Roscommon, 100 people in Roscommon town going to comedy. Wednesday night in Roscommon, Thursday night in Carrick-on-Shannon, Friday night in Sligo. And that was every month. Those 3 nights happened regardless of everything.
Yeah.
I was doing 2 sketches a week with Today FM with Bernard, and then all the other nights were filled up with international. Halfpenny, Galway, Belfast, Limerick, Wexford, Waterford, everywhere.
Yeah. So as you said, you were just there on the crest.
Just on the crest, just that thing.
But obviously, and I would still say it to anyone, you are, for me, as good as any stand-up comedian I've ever witnessed. And anyone that's come to any gigs we've done, and I'm not saying that because you're here, I could tell 100 people that I've told it to. So you obviously didn't just get lucky by getting on the crest wave. You obviously were able to stay afloat and do good. That people saying, we're going to go back to see him and we're going to rebook him. Like, people don't rebook unless it works. Like,
Well, I fell down plenty in the first couple of years, and still do.
Occasionally.
But it's a learning process.
I can imagine.
I suppose, it's a hard. You learn if you kind of fall heavy.
Okay.
You kind of figure out how to not do that again.
Yes. Okay. Well, it is like anything, I suppose, isn't it? But as you said, it's probably a bit more vulnerable in live comedy with an audience waiting for a laugh. So obviously, when you were on that crest of a wave, then all these shows, and I'm only going to name a few of them here. Obviously, we talked about the Savage Eye and Pictorial Weekly, the Hardy Box, Bridget Neyman then eventually, and then the Tommy Tiernan show, I suppose, is one of the more recent ones. So with all of those, was it like you were auditioning? Were you in the club of people that were writing and just knew them and just...
Well, Dave and me were friends.
Yeah.
So Dave was doing a thing with he was trying to make a pilot about his own life. Okay. I think he called it My Stupid Life or something, I can't remember what it was. But he made this pilot and he spent a few quid in it. Or he kind of looked at it and went, I don't know. And he got all depressed about it. And I said, well, don't worry about that. Just let's shoot sketches and act the bollocks and get stuff done. Yeah. And so we started doing that. So then in a short space of time we compiled about 15 minutes of material, and he used to bring it to comedy clubs and stick on a projector and show it.
Oh, so
15 minutes, whatever, and they had people would laugh and not laugh and point out stuff, and used to get feedback that way. And then by another stroke of good fortune, Green Ink from Belfast, the production company, were in Dublin to talk to somebody else, I don't know who it was, about another show, and James Goldsberry, who was a friend of mine, a comedian, managed to give them the CD or the DVD that we had.
Okay.
And they liked that. And then they came back. They came back and met us about a month later and then commissioned it as a pilot for a Channel 4 series of pilots. They had this idea called Comedy Lab in Channel 4 a bunch of years ago, where they'd commission 6 separate pilots of comedy shows, and based on feedback and based on their own rating, they would make a series out of one of them.
Okay, that happened with the Hardy books as well, wasn't it? There was kind of some kind of a
I don't know.
project thing where they commissioned a few people to try, and then maybe
Oh,
based on,
yeah.
I remember something like that. So again,
So that happened in the UK at first. So
Okay.
you know the old story. Like, I mean, if something happens in the UK. In the UK,
Yeah, it'll be.
RTE are going, oh, hold on a second. What the fuck? Ring him up. Put out that cigarette and ring him. So, like, next thing Dave's back in favour with them because they're going, oh, that's very interesting, you're doing that, and there was all those Irish comics with you.
Okay.
Do you want to have another look at your pilot? So they took his
The old
older
pilot. And all of a sudden it was-
extracted a bit out of it about alcohol, and then we made a pilot of the Savage Eye out of some of the sketch work he had done about alcohol and alcohol abuse and the Irish relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
So he called that episode, Why Are the Irish So Addicted to Alcohol, or why are whatever. And that became a pilot which was put in on another project that RTE were doing called Project Haha, which was Sam's Comedy Lab, different pilots of different shows, and the best one would get commissioned. So that happened with Savage Eye.
Right, so
then that was 2008, 2009. We made the first one the pilot in 8, the first series in 09, second series we made it in 10, but it didn't come out till 11. The third series we made it directly after the second series went out. We went straight into, it was like 2 years solid, straight into working on the third one. And the third one was broadcast in 12. And the last one took a little bit longer. That was 14.
And then they did you stop writing, or did RT kind of just say?
I think we came to the end of it because we ended up getting back around to stuff we'd started with. So it was kind of time to.
You probably knew yourselves, which I think is a good
long
place to
period.
be,
I mean,
not to try and drag.
2008, October, kind of autumn 2008 to summer of 14.
Okay.
Like a straight through, really.
And out of all of those shows, okay, I'm going to guess that The Savage Eye was probably your favourite, but was there other shows you go, oh, I really loved that character, or was there a favourite character that you liked throughout those different shows?
Well, I did a lot of cops, as you know.
Yeah.
I really liked one sketch we did. I really liked lots of the sketches. I mean, we did one about Donegal Gardaí at one point, and that was one of the hardest ones to shoot because we just couldn't stop laughing.
Okay.
And I was like, it was just Dave going, well, the suspect probably came up the road and he went into this kind of zombie zone going, he probably saw the blood mixed in with the water and he just went off like this. And then I'd go off like that.
And not easy to keep that straight.
Not easy to keep a straight face for that. Especially when everything's quiet on a set.
Yeah. Well,
Extremely hard to.
It's just that deathly silence.
Yeah.
You're there. And
not-
would you have ever liked to be a guard? Because you've played the role so many times.
Yeah, probably.
You made a
I
good
find
one.
myself checking people's insurance.
Car tax.
I do, yeah, see it. I go, oh, that's out of date.
And you've got stopped by guards that kind of do the skit, is it?
Cops that go see you and they recognise you from
Yeah.
thing, they go, nardy! Guards, like midnight.
So could you speed now and they just let you off because you just do the skit?
Well, yeah.
You don't have to reveal this
They
on the
don't
show.
care. If the thing is, I mean, it happened a few times. It happened and happened in cop shops where cops go, "Cheers, your man, do the voice," and people behind going, "Hey, will you fucking hold it up? Shut up, you! Do the voice." That happened a lot.
I well believe it.
And then the thing I found the funniest was the cops that stopped me that weren't into the show, but just had seen my head in a uniform and just thought I was a cop.
Oh, right.
When a fella said to me one night, "You're on the job, aren't you?" I said, "What?" He said, "You're a guard. You're a guard, aren't you?"
Yeah.
I was going,
No, I'm not.
He's going, "All right, I thought I'd seen you. You probably saw it on an ad or something."
Somewhere, and just his brain
that's
clicked
all.
the two together. And apart from all the TV roles that you've done, you've obviously been on big screen as well. And to be honest, when I was kind of reading up before this, a couple of great movies that I spotted that I didn't know of. One called Hector, and the other one, The Man Who Invented Christmas.
Yeah.
So it was a real all-star cast in that.
Santa Claus, he invented Christmas. It was, This Man Who Invented Christmas is a story about
Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens' earlier life.
Right, and when he was writing A Christmas Carol.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was really interesting. I played a guard in that as well.
Okay.
An English guard.
Keeps coming back.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
All that. And that was good. And then the Hector one was a really nice film about a homeless dude living between hostels here and there, and always goes back to the same hostel at Christmas. And that was with Peter Mullen. I was quite starstruck actually in that one because I was playing opposite Peter Mullen and Keith Allen, who I would have watched as a kid because I've been an avid fan of English comedy. He was comic strip.
Yes, of course.
Him and Richardson and Rick Mayall, Ade Edmondson, they were all comic strip. Jennifer Saunders, Dawn
You
French.
grew up watching these.
I grew up watching
next thing
him,
acting.
and there he was in the, you know.
Bit starstruck, so when you were doing it, or even doing your lines opposite
Yeah,
him
I
and
was
that?
kind of just really. I had to really shake myself.
Yeah.
On the day at times, kind of going, Jesus, Keith Allen.
Off again,
Brilliant.
and then do these characters and then go off and have a cup of tea with them.
Yeah.
And would you like to do more movies? Is that something you'd really try and get into more, or are you going to keep the comedy?
Oh well, I'd like to do anything now because I haven't done anything for a long time. Jesus.
Which leads me on brilliantly to the next question. So, lockdown, obviously someone in your world, I presume it was more or less complete stop and shut.
Stop, yeah, and then I didn't mind the stop and shut bit so much, but I'm getting really annoyed with the we're going to open again. No, we're not opening again.
Yeah.
And because our world, the live world, is so tied up with the pub world and the restaurant world as well, because there's been a lot of stuff we did in restaurants over the years too, and they would be an ideal place to kind of start it off again. But it's all just keeps falling back down.
Start and stop.
It's awful. And they're talking about, I was just thinking of a stupid joke earlier, they're talking about all these kind of cases coming out of football matches.
Okay.
Crowds in stadiums. Like, that's not a third wave, that's a Mexican wave.
You heard it here first, live on the Sligo Show. And so obviously we know you in many vices, but you're also a brilliant impersonator.
Well,
any go-to character you love doing?
I haven't got. You're
a good Jerry Adams always.
Well, I've done the Jerry Adams for years, and I'm kind of a bit fed up with it, really. But
yeah,
I suppose he is too. But I kind of talk to myself a lot of the time. You know, I don't talk to myself as any particular person.
Okay.
I just, when I'm in Ballysadare, I'll be going, Jesus Christ Almighty. Just look at the state of that now. What did I say to you about the like of that now?
Yeah. So you see something in the village and you just start making this conversation.
About, Jesus Christ, yeah, that kind of thing there.
Yeah.
And anywhere I go, I kind of just tend to.
I have a habit of saying Dublin street signs in a Dublin accent in my head when I'm walking around.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So you're pretty similar to that. Well, John.
Ballysadare street signs.
Ballysadare street
Main
signs.
Street.
I'll do that. Not too many.
That's it.
So if you anything upcoming, I know there's a weird question, but
Well,
you're working on any writing, any new projects or any TV movie work?
I'm not. The only thing I'd like to plug is that even though we haven't got a bar in the Hawkswell, we're doing some shows in the foyer. So Danny O'Brien is coming down on the July 29th. Yeah. He's going to do Thursday, July 29th. The show is called Fun in the Foyer. Sounds a bit dodgy, but so we're going to do that on July 29th. That's a short enough show. The tickets are on sale now. I think it might be €15. I'm not exactly sure.
That won't matter. I think people are bursting to get out.
Yeah, so it's only, unfortunately, no bar, but it's going to be a short enough show. I think it's about an hour and 15 tops. Okay. There's going to be, because you were on a workshop thing that I did about writing, I've done a few of them. So there's one or two of the people from the workshops coming in to do short
so
spots,
do a real
short 5 minutes spots in the show as well, and Danny, and it'll all be done and dusted in an hour and 15. Good. And we've got another one on the 2nd of September.
So July 29th and September 2nd. And they're on hawkswell.com, obviously.
Carl Spain is doing the 2nd of September. And one other thing that I meant to mention, and you asked me about films, is, and I sent you, actually, it crossed my mind last minute before I came in here. I sent you the link to the trailer. There's a film that I'm in, small part. Yeah. It's called The Bright Side. It's about a comedian as well. What's her name that plays the main role? Gwenda, I can't remember. Okay. But it's a good movie. It's getting a bit of, because of the pandemic, it got kind of pushed back, but it's getting a proper release on August 20th.
Okay.
And it's called The Bright Side.
The Bright Side.
And it's a good film. It's a good flick,
Okay.
and it's good fun. So check that one
Lots
out.
for people to watch.
Yeah,
check
yeah,
out
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
Well, John, look, you've been an immense comedian throughout your years and great for Sligo, and like on a personal level,
Up Sligo.
without you, I don't think my comedy festival would have been as successful as it was. So we roll on. Hopefully, we might have some more gigs coming in the near
Yeah.
future as well. So it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks so much for your time and coming
Brian.
in, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.